Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and drop your thoughts in the comments. What you're about to hear isn't just another celebrity clash. It's one of the most unexpected, tension-filled moments in late-night TV history. A prince, a punchline, and a storm out that shook the studio. Let's get into it. The Tonight Show set sparkle like it always does. Bright lights, polished floors, that unmistakable skyline backdrop. Jimmy Fallon, America's ever-smiling host, bounced with energy during the pre-show rehearsal, cracking jokes with the crew and making sure the monologue felt tight. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But backstage, Prince Harry wasn't smiling. He'd agreed to the interview as part of a carefully planned media push. Nothing wild, just a soft appearance to show he was still in control of his public image. The Netflix docuseries had aired months earlier. The book tour was behind him, and while the press hadn't exactly eased up, the frenzy had slowed to a low simmer. Fallon's team had promised an easy sit-down, light conversation, a few laughs, maybe even a game. But there was something in the air, an undercurrent of nerves. Meghan had hesitated when the booking came through. She knew Fallon's style, playful but unpredictable. And lately, everyone was taking shots. From podcasts to parodies, their names were being tossed around more than ever, and not always kindly. Still, Harry walked onto the stage, greeted by roaring applause. Fallon clapped along, gesturing grandly. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as a former royal, a best-selling author, a man brave enough to grow a beard and leave a castle, Prince Harry. Harry chuckled as they shook hands, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. They settled into the usual routine. Fallon leaned in, animated as ever. So you've been in California for a while now. Tell me, is it true the biggest adjustment was Trader Joe's? Laughter. Harry nodded. Well, that and parking lots. You don't really parallel park much at Buckingham Palace. The crowd loved it. For the first 10 minutes, everything ran smoothly. Harry loosened up. Fallon pulled out an old photo of young Harry in his military uniform. They spoke about service, mental health, his latest charitable project. And then, it happened. It started like any Fallon bit. A segment titled Royal Rumble, True or False? A goofy game where guests confirm or deny rumors. The cue cards were ready. The audience was laughing before he even began. Okay, here we go, Fallon said, holding up the first card. True or false? You once snuck a bottle of tequila into Windsor Castle by hiding it inside a corgi costume. Harry laughed. False, but now I kind of wish that were true. Second card. True or false? Meghan makes you do all the dishes. Harry raised an eyebrow. Only the ones I dirty. Laughter again. Fallon grinned, nodding as the crowd cheered. Then he held up the third card. His tone shifted, slightly sharper. True or false? Meghan made you give up your last name, your security, and your spine? The studio froze. A few awkward chuckles flickered through the audience, people unsure whether to laugh or cringe. Harry stared at Fallon for a beat too long. Fallon blinked, smiled wider, and added, I mean, come on, we all saw the Oprah thing. Harry didn't smile. Is that a joke? Fallon hesitated. It's just the segment, man. We clear these with the team. But Harry was already unhooking his lapel mic. He moved with practiced calm, but there was fire in his eyes. You don't get to talk about my wife like that, he said, low and direct. Fallon leaned forward, hands up. Hey, I didn't mean look, it's just a bit. Harry stood. Bits don't humiliate people, that's not humor. That's cowardice. The audience was dead silent. A producer offstage waved frantically. One of the camera operators pulled back instinctively as Harry stepped off the stage, passed the curtain, and vanished backstage without another word. Fallon, visibly shaken, turned back to the audience. Well, that was Prince Harry, everyone. A smattering of claps followed. Then silence again. Backstage, chaos erupted. A flurry of assistants rushed toward Harry as he grabbed his coat. Security trailed him, uncertain. Meghan wasn't there. She'd stayed home with the kids, but her phone was already buzzing. The clip was being clipped. Tweets were flying. Headlines were writing themselves. Prince Harry storms off Fallon's show over Meghan joke. It aired less than an hour later. A leaked behind-the-scenes cell phone video hit TikTok within 20 minutes. Back in the green room, Fallon sat with his head in his hands. A producer placed a hand on his shoulder. "We can edit around it. Blur it if we have to." But Fallon shook his head. "Don't. Let it air." Meanwhile, Harry was in the back of a black SUV, staring at his phone as social media exploded. Some called him brave. Others mocked him for overreacting. Memes flooded in. Comedians began crafting monologues. One late-night rival tweeted, "Guess the crown's too heavy for jokes now." The next morning, Fallon issued a statement on Instagram. No PR spin. Just a text post. "I crossed a line. It wasn't funny. I'm sorry." The comments were divided. Some called it soft. Some called it too late. But the question hanging in the air now wasn't about Fallon. It was about Harry. Would he speak? Would he stay silent? Or would he answer with fire? The fallout from Fallon's disastrous joke didn't take a full news cycle to erupt. It took 30 minutes. Before Harry's car even left the NBC compound, clips were spreading like wildfire. The Tonight Show's YouTube channel didn't post the full segment, smart move, but it didn't matter. A backstage assistant had caught the entire storm out from the wings on their phone, and within minutes, the video was everywhere. Twitter blew up. TikTok was flooded with breakdowns. Instagram had clips from 5 different angles. And YouTube? Every channel with a voice had something to say. Some were gleeful. Others were angry. But no one was silent. One clip in particular, zoomed in, shaky, shot from the third row, caught Harry's words crystal clear. "Bits don't humiliate people. That's not humor. That's cowardice." That line trended for 12 straight hours. By dawn, hashtags were splintering into sides. #Fallon disrespect. #Harry meltdown. #protect Meghan. #royal outburst. And in Montecito, Meghan Markle was reading every one of them. She had stayed up all night, her phone pinged non-stop. Her mother had called. Serena had texted. Tyler Perry sent a brief message, "Call if you need me." She didn't cry. She didn't rant. She just watched. Harry arrived home just after 2 a.m. He entered quietly, expecting to find her asleep. Instead, she was sitting at the long oak dining table, laptop open, half a cup of tea untouched beside her. He sat across from her. No words, just eye contact. Then Meghan asked softly, "Did they laugh?" Harry's jaw clenched. "Some." She nodded. Silence again. Then she reached across the table and placed her hand on his. "We don't respond yet. Let them talk. Let it burn." He didn't ask what she meant. He just nodded. The next day, NBC released a carefully worded statement. The Tonight Show deeply regrets any offense caused during Prince Harry's appearance. We value all our guests and are reviewing internal procedures. Fallon remained silent. But the silence was strategic. By that evening, Harry and Meghan's spokesperson released a statement of their own. Simple. Sharp. There is a difference between comedy and cruelty. Last night's segment failed to recognize that distinction. Prince Harry stood up for his wife and will always do so. It was signed with both their names. That was when the media war truly ignited. Conservative outlets jumped on the narrative of fragility. Harry can't take a joke. Meghan turned him into a snowflake. They want privacy but demand attention. It was relentless. But on the flip side, something new was happening. Comedians and writers, the ones usually afraid to take sides, started to speak up. A writer for Fallon's own staff anonymously told Variety, "That card? It wasn't cleared. It wasn't even in the draft. It was added during rehearsal by Fallon." The Tonight Show scrambled again. PR doubled their talking points. Fallon still said nothing. Until Sunday night. He walked out to his usual music. The crowd clapped, but not as hard. Not as long. And then, instead of the usual desk jokes, he went off script. "I want to start tonight with something serious," he said. Silence. "What happened on Thursday wasn't okay. I made a joke I shouldn't have made. Not because it didn't land, but because it hurt someone. And I'm not going to pretend that's comedy." He paused. "I've spent 20 years building a career on being the nice guy in late night. But sometimes the nice guy says something that's not so nice. And I need to own that." He looked directly at the camera. "Prince Harry, I apologize. Meghan, I'm sorry. It won't happen again." The audience clapped. Some stood. The clip trended immediately, but not for the reasons Fallon may have hoped. Because Meghan had already filmed something else. On Monday morning, a 5-minute video dropped on the Archewell YouTube page. No set, no makeup, just Meghan sitting by a window, sunlight on her face. "I've learned over the past few years that silence isn't always noble," she began. "Sometimes it enables cruelty. And sometimes the best thing you can do is say, 'That wasn't okay.'" She didn't mention Fallon, or the joke, or the cards. But she didn't need to. The message was crystal clear, and it was devastating. In the hours that followed, the dominoes kept falling. A former Tonight Show guest, a female pop artist, tweeted that she'd had similar experiences with off-the-cuff jokes that felt more like stabs than skits. A clip from 2018 resurfaced, showing Fallon making an offhand remark about a Latina actress's accent. It hadn't gone viral back then, now it did. NBC announced an internal review of its writing and rehearsal process. But more than anything, the real shift was in tone. The narrative was no longer, "Harry can't take a joke." It was, "Why do we keep doing this?" And the pressure mounted. Meghan and Harry were invited to do an exclusive sit-down with Gayle King. Netflix wanted a follow-up documentary. Oprah called. They said no to all of it. Instead, they waited, letting the fire burn itself out, exactly as Meghan had predicted. But the drama wasn't done yet, because someone unexpected was about to enter the conversation. And when they did, everything changed. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the unseen world behind late-night television, hit that subscribe button now. Drop a comment below. Whose side are you on? Do you think Fallon crossed the line, or was Harry too sensitive? Because in this chapter, the story gets messier, the stakes get higher, and someone completely unexpected steps into the ring. The apology should have ended it. At least, that's what NBC hoped. That's what Jimmy Fallon's team counted on when they circulated his somber Monday night monologue as proof that the issue had been addressed. But public memory doesn't operate on traditional timelines anymore, and the court of opinion doesn't close shop after prime time. Instead, the backlash simply mutated. Now, it wasn't just about Fallon's joke. It was about every late-night host, every comedy writer, every person who ever hid cruelty behind a punchline and called it harmless. It became cultural, political, personal. And that's when Piers Morgan spoke up. You could almost predict it, like a pop culture law of physics. A royal scandal pulls the internet apart, and somewhere in a London newsroom, Piers begins typing. He didn't tweet. He aired it. Full segment. Full volume. There you have it, folks. A prince who once served in Afghanistan, reduced to storming off a soundstage because someone told a joke. We're watching the death of resilience live on television. And guess what? It's Meghan's script. Harry's just reading the lines. The video was clipped, subtitled, reshared, and posted across platforms with the speed of wildfire. Back in Montecito, Harry watched it silently on his iPad. Meghan walked in halfway through, looked at the screen, and asked just one question. "Are you going to let him say that?" Harry didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, he picked up the phone. He didn't call a network. He didn't call a lawyer. He called Trevor Noah. Yes, Trevor Noah, the recently departed host of The Daily Show, who'd quietly become a friend and confidant. Someone who knew the power of the stage and the weight of public shame. The two spoke for 45 minutes. No PR teams, no scripts. Just two men who understood what it meant to be both target and symbol. The next night, Trevor posted a single tweet. "Sometimes, defending your partner isn't about strength. It's about respect. I saw it. You saw it. Let's not pretend otherwise." No names, no context, but everyone knew. By now, the media storm had evolved into a digital war zone. Clips from the Fallon incident were remixed into mock movie trailers. Reaction videos clogged YouTube's front page. Reddit threads parsed every second of Harry's facial expressions. Some questioned whether it was all orchestrated, a PR stunt. Others said it was the first time they'd seen Harry act like a real husband, not a prince, not a puppet, but a man unwilling to let his wife become the world's punchline. And in the middle of it all, Fallon went dark. No social media, no appearances, no selfies with guests, just silence. Until Wednesday. That's when everything escalated again. A leaked email, one that wasn't supposed to go public. An anonymous source from within NBC sent it to multiple outlets. A rehearsal schedule marked up by hand. One note circled in red ink read, "Punch harder at Meghan, segment needs teeth." The handwriting wasn't Fallon's, but the note was real. It hit Twitter like a bum. #NeedsTeeth trended within minutes. Fallon's camp immediately denied it was his. "Jimmy doesn't write those notes," a rep said. The segment was produced by a junior staffer. It was never intended to air as is. But that explanation didn't satisfy anyone. Now the question shifted. Was this a culture problem? Did The Tonight Show foster a behind-the-scenes environment that encouraged cruelty in the name of comedy? The media started digging. Past guests came forward anonymously, two female comedians and one actor, claiming they were pressured to laugh at themselves harder or risk being cut from their segments. Suddenly, the Fallon incident wasn't an isolated moment. It was part of a pattern. Meanwhile, Harry was quiet. No Instagram posts, no interviews, no podcasts, but he was working behind the scenes. He reached out to mental health organizations, offering to speak privately to staff, veterans, and first responders. Not as a prince, not as a celebrity, just as someone who knew what it meant to be targeted and to regret staying silent. And Meghan? She was writing an op-ed for a major American paper, quietly titled, "When Laughing Hurts." The piece hadn't been published yet, but the moment people heard about it, anticipation reached a boiling point. And then, another twist. The View announced its Thursday guest lineup, and smack in the middle of the card, Sharon Osbourne. Yes, Sharon. Meghan's long-standing critic, the woman who had once defended Piers Morgan live on air, then exited the show amid controversy. She was back, and she had something to say. Producers framed the episode as a raw conversation about freedom of speech, comedy, and cancel culture. Everyone knew what that really meant. And when Sharon sat down, camera lights burning, audience on edge, she didn't hold back. "I've been in this industry for decades," she began. "I've said things I regret. But what I don't regret is standing up when everyone else sits down." Jimmy Fallon told a joke. It wasn't the best, sure, but Harry storming off, "Please, grow up." The segment was clipped, Reaction videos poured in, and once again the spotlight returned to the prince. Only this time, he wasn't backing away. Because the next morning, something unexpected happened. NBC News confirmed that Prince Harry had been invited back to Fallon's show to have a real conversation, no games, no jokes, just a talk. They called it a second sit down, and Harry said yes. The NBC studios looked the same, but everything felt different. Less than 2 weeks had passed since the now infamous walk-off, but for the Tonight Show team, it may as well have been a year. The set was polished, the lights tested 3 times, and every single segment that night was stripped of improvisation. The only thing on the schedule that mattered was the second sit-down, the return of Prince Harry. Jimmy Fallon hadn't slept the night before. He arrived 4 hours early. No jokes, no rehearsals, just silence. He wore a simple black suit, no tie, his hair tousled in a way that felt more sincere than styled. His producers handed him cards. He put them down. No cards tonight. The audience didn't know what to expect. They applauded, but cautiously, the way a crowd does when it isn't sure if it's witnessing history or a pending PR disaster. And then Harry walked in. No royal guards, no staged music, just him in a navy blazer, open collar, no entourage. He sat down, adjusted his mic, looked Jimmy directly in the eyes, and waited. Jimmy was the first to speak. "Thanks for being here." Harry nodded. "Thanks for inviting me back." The room was quiet. The usual banter was absent. What replaced it was a strange, electric stillness, like everyone in the building was collectively holding their breath. Jimmy leaned forward, hands clasped. "I want to start by saying again I'm sorry. For the joke, for how it landed, for what it meant." Harry didn't blink. "I appreciate that." Jimmy continued, slowly. "We try to make people laugh. That's what this show does. But when the punchline is someone's real life, someone's real pain, it stops being funny." "I forgot that." Harry exhaled. "I've made mistakes too, Jimmy. I've said things in interviews I wish I hadn't. I've walked out of rooms that I maybe should have stayed in. But that night, I wasn't walking away from you. I was walking away from a moment I didn't want to make worse." The audience was silent. No clapping, no laughter, just listening. "What was it about the joke?" Jimmy asked carefully. "That crossed the line for you?" Harry looked down for a moment, then back up. "It wasn't just the joke. It was the build-up, the smirks. The idea that my wife is a target. Again. We've been through so much, Jimmy. And I get it, we're public figures. We've told our stories. But Meghan has been dehumanized in ways that aren't satire. Their character assassination dressed up as comedy." Jimmy nodded. "You're right." The conversation turned. They talked about mental health, about veterans, about how humor can heal or hurt, sometimes in the same breath. Jimmy shared his own regrets, things he'd said to guests early in his career. Harry shared stories he'd never told publicly about how humor was sometimes the only thing that got him through his darkest days. And then Jimmy asked, "Do you forgive me?" Harry didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I do." The audience clapped, softly at first, then louder. Not because it was performative, but because it was real. And that moment, 2 men sitting across from each other, both bruised by the same event in different ways, felt like a cultural exhale. After the segment, there were no musical guests, no sketches. The episode ended on that note, with the NBC logo fading slowly to black. The next day, the world reacted. Some called it powerful, others called it calculated, but no one could deny it. The moment landed. The Guardian ran the headline, "Prince Harry rewrites the late-night script." The Washington Post called it a rare moment of accountability in comedy. Fox News labeled it damage control with a royal twist. But it wasn't just about coverage anymore. It was about what changed afterward. Other hosts took notice. 1 week later, Seth Meyers opened his show with a disclaimer. "If we joke tonight, we joke with care." Stephen Colbert referenced it gently. Sometimes the punchline punches too hard. Even SNL, known for ruthless sketches, aired a subtle cold open mocking the media's obsession with royal breakdowns, not the royals themselves. And Meghan? She never addressed the Fallon interview directly. She didn't have to. But 3 days after it aired, she posted a single photo on Instagram, her and Harry walking on the beach, hand in hand, barefoot, smiling. The caption read, "Peace is the loudest silence." It became the most liked post on her account. Behind the scenes, producers whispered that NBC had invited Meghan to appear herself. She declined. Netflix reached out again. No response. The story began to cool. The hashtags disappeared. The videos slowed down. The outrage turned into reflection. Not everyone forgave Fallon, not everyone supported Harry, but the noise had passed. And what remained was something quieter, but deeper. An understanding that even in comedy there are lines, that even public figures bleed when mocked, that dignity, once lost on stage, can still be reclaimed if only someone is brave enough to walk back into the light. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real story here. Not the walk-off, not the joke, not the firestorm, but the return.